Hello friends, today we have with us Deepesh. Deepesh has graduated in Bachelor's in Design from National Institute of Design. Deepesh works as a design consultant and also provides guidance to students who are interested in design. Let us hear more from Deepesh. Deepesh, can you tell us about your academic background and your current profession?
Hi everyone. As Nani suggested, I am a graduate from product design from National Institute of Design. Currently, I am working on a foundation of an upcoming project involved in investigative design. I spend around half of my time exploring and introducing the various fields of design to curious minds of all ages, both through formal lectures as well as workshops and through informal setups as well. Many of these students are looking to apply for various design institutes in and outside India, and when I'm not exploring or teaching, I provide design consultancy to organizations and governments in environmental as well as education.
Deepesh, so what does an education in design teach you? What does it prepare you for?
Okay, so to answer that question, you will kind of have to change the question a bit, and it will vary heavily based on the purpose behind wanting to pursue design as a career to begin with. And many a times that purpose can shift even as you are going through design education. When I went to NID wanting to develop hard skills, my core idea was to figure out ways in which I can have the skills that I could then offer to the industry. And sure, it kind of taught me those things. But to me, a greater takeaway was that it prepared me for uncertainty, to ask questions and to question assumptions. And to me, that's the only way you can innovate. And it's because of that thinking process that I could even dare to conclude my thesis by saying the world doesn't need yet another product designer. And without having had that right mindset to make that conclusion, I doubt I'd be looking at design the way I do today.
What subjects comprise in the design curriculum at NID?
Okay, so depending upon the discipline that you choose, in the first year would include the first year at NID, at least for undergraduation, involves a 1 year of foundation course where all 100 students, 125 students would go through exactly the same kind of subjects, which are slightly more broad in terms of understanding basic design principles. So there won't be any focus on product or graphics or textiles or any particular field of design, but it'll be by and large more about understanding design, the history of design, etc. And then
Right.
once in your second year, once you get the discipline of your choice, then the curriculum will be slightly more focused in the field that you have chosen. So if you're doing product design, then you will have courses which have to do something with manufacturing, something with understanding other processes. If you're doing graphic design, then again you will have digital and analog medium. So it kind of depends heavily on what field you get chosen into in your second year, and then the curriculum will kind of take a different route from there on.
Okay. Okay. For a student who's enrolled into NID or a similar design institute, does his routine life or schedule look like? What activities, college clubs, or projects or lectures he's involved with?
Well, so at least during my time at NID, the daily schedule would be that you wake up in the morning, you have your breakfast, you go to your class about 9 o'clock in the morning. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think what was more important, I think not just from a design perspective, but also for all other fields of education, one thing that I really appreciated there is that there was a significant amount of importance given to extracurricular activities, and also from a learning standpoint. Like at NID, we had this learning philosophy of learning by doing things. So if there would be faculties who would literally encourage you to at times bunk their lectures in order to go see a movie screening or listen to a talk, which happened to be during their lecture times. So I think one of the few things that really like because they understand, like one of the few things that was really important to understand that a lot of learning happens outside the classroom environment as well, right? And it's
Right.
important that, like, just because let's say I was a product designer doesn't mean that I don't see how filmmaking happens, or doesn't mean I don't understand what is letterpress and graphic design, or that doesn't mean I don't understand how our exhibitions design, etc. So I think one of the few things
Right.
that was really important, that like as a institute, there was always an open door policy, which meant that in many ways one could take a lecture from another discipline as well if they were intrigued by it or it piqued their interest. we had this entire way of learning where we were looking at film appreciation, movie critiquing. We made sure that like almost all disciplines are required to display their work by the end of every course, so that the rest of the campus can also see what is happening in that particular discipline.
Right.
Right. So that
Right.
way, like just because you have chosen a particular field of design doesn't mean you're not exposed to other disciplines as well when during your time at NIT. And I'm pretty sure that's likewise similar for other institutes of design as well.
Right. So, how does a student prepare for his design entrance exam or go about his admission process? What is the procedure that a student has to get into and complete?
So the procedure would go from not having a lot of requirements to having a few specific requirements depending upon like the field that you're choosing. For example, if you are choosing architecture as your field of design, then there is a requirement of giving this entrance exam called NATA, right?
Okay. Right.
So, and if not architecture, then most other design disciplines have a very common like they'll be common in terms of what the test is, but they might be specific to the needs of that college. And in general, we call it a design aptitude test. And
Right.
like the like the name suggests, it is an aptitude test. So technically, you should not be requiring to go to a tuition or go learn for it, because you can't really teach aptitude to someone, right? So it's an object of your observation. It's an object of your presence of mind, your creativity. So technically, and in fact, most institutes encourage that student kind of sit for these kind of exams directly as they are, so that like the assessment of that individual is slightly more fair in terms of them not having uh, gamed the system in any way.
Hmm. Hmm. Though today the general procedure is that you opt for a class for entrance exam and prepare for it according to the guidance given, and then appear for it.
Yeah,
That being the
so
best method.
yeah, so what one of the few things that happened over the last few years is that obviously the demand for design went up, and obviously supply isn't there. Like we don't have enough design institutes. So when I had applied, we had about 7,500 students applying for 100 seats. Now,
Right.
when you have that level of competition there, and like this year, it was roughly about 21,000 students having sat for about 650 seats, uh,
Okay.
and it's still exactly the same issue. Okay, like this. So there is technically the test is called a design aptitude test, and you are required to kind of just
Right.
give it and demonstrate your aptitude in its most fair way possible. But just like you have IITs and IIMs, over a period of time, the competition goes really high to a point where most people think that they can no longer rely only on just showing up on exam day and like going for it. So
Right.
many of these institutes, then we'll have a lot of these other institutes that kind of coach you into preparing better for how to deal with the design entrance test. But at the one of the things that like even if you go for a tuition or a class, while they'll be able to create similar situations, like so there are two design phases in your entrances. One is called the design aptitude test, and once you clear the design aptitude test, there's a situation test. Okay, now like the first
Right.
one is more about your aptitude and observation and like just general presence of mind. The second one is very focused on your presence of mind, right? It's called a situation test because they'll put you in a situation and you will be judged on the basis of how you deal with the situation. Now, you could go to a tuition, you could go wherever you want. There's only so much somebody can teach you how to deal with a situation, right? Because that's
Right.
literally an object of your own abilities. So if you go to a tuition, you go to a coaching institute, what they can do is they can create similar situations. So because there's no format as such for these entrances,
Hmm.
you are like while you will be so the only advantage you'll have of going to any coaching institute would be that you'll be better prepared in terms of expecting what kind of things it will be. But at no point in time could you say that like it's not like how we prepare
Right.
for a 10th and 12th where you have read a few books and you know that the questions that are going to be asked are going to be from this book. There is no book
Right.
here.
Right.
So it
Right.
kind of still
Okay.
continue, it just brushes you up in terms of like refining you into being better prepared, but it doesn't guarantee that the likelihood of you getting in versus somebody who has never coached for it getting in. There's
Right.
so
It will only familiarize you with the format
yes,
or the
yes, कि
pattern.
ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है sort of a thing.
So, Deepesh, what are some good design institutes and the courses that they offer to learn about design? Where can students apply or look out for design courses?
So I think first there has to be, like, we are assuming that there's fair understanding of what design is. Then in that case you have many options within and outside the country. But most of the students that I teach even today have a completely different mental image of what they think design is. And while they are, of
Right,
course, partially right, there's a greater need to delve into design fundamentals before you start hunting for institutes, right? So one can begin looking at various online resources that could give you a brief introduction of design, its history, the various disciplines one might be interested in. Like NID itself has a self-directed online course called Node,
yeah,
which is NID's online design education, that you can
right,
do at your time and pace to help form a better understanding of what design is. But then there are many more. There are free sources available on YouTube, on lynda.com, on skillshare.com, and there are a ton of other spaces that you can look into. And as far as courses are concerned, there are core design disciplines like architecture, industrial design, and visual communication, which would have many fields of specialization within them. So, like within architecture, you would have interior design, and then industrial design would have product design, and visual communication would
right,
have graphic design, for example.
right,
And then there are these new disciplines like speculative design that aim to serve the needs of the modern world and exploring future possibilities. These are very recent, and they are slightly more edgy in their approach, in the sense that a lot of times you will also look at having assumptions that are completely removed from our current belief system, just so that we can look at possibilities that have not been pondered upon before. So
okay,
uh, but I think in my view, we've just started beginning to understand what design is. And I think a student will be better off first understanding and getting some core understanding of what design is before they start looking for design institutes.
okay. So you're saying first you need to clear out whether he wants to go in, say, animation, or he wants to go in product design, or what form of design, and then search for institutes which offer those courses or are good in those courses.
Yeah, because like it depends. It's not, so if you ask somebody in an absolute form which is the best institute to go learn design from, it's a skewed question to
Right.
begin with, because that answer will
Okay.
vary completely from where you are and what do you expect from that institute, right? So for example, if you NID is a place which has a design philosophy of learning by doing, right? Which means you are given a brief
Okay.
and you are kind of led to explore on your own, and there's very limited teaching in its traditional form, and you're kind of on your own, and you will only be redirected every time you are, like, lost somewhere. And that's partially the reason why we even call our faculties guides, and they're not called sirs and madams, right? These people are not there to teach you per se. And similarly, let's say if you want to do animation, then it's important that you first understand what type of animation you want. So if you are more into hand drawn animation and you like uh, uh, the way animation has been happening since, let's say, the kind of childhood cartoons we used to see, then you would be more interested in seeing what Japan is doing and kind of what kind of design institutes they have. And similarly, if you are
Right.
more into using digital softwares and understanding the Disney and the Pixar way of making animated movies, then you'll be looking at US, right? So at no point in time can I, or not just me, anybody could give you like an absolute answer of what is the best institute to go to, because that answer will depend heavily on what do you want done from that institute.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So a student has to go out and explore, but at an age of 10th or 12th standard,
yeah.
will it be possible for a student to realize whether he is interested in digital animation or hand drawing animation, or will he have avenues for getting this exposure, to take that decision? Is it a too early stage for him to decide?
I think there are many ways in which can tackle this issue of ambiguity, like especially when you're looking at career options which most people have not heard of. Then there are easier ways to look into. One is, the easiest way would be to find somebody, or somebody who knows somebody who is a designer, for example. You can speak with
Right,
them to understand what design was. You can then ask them to connect you further with somebody who specializes in the field of design that you are interested in. That's
right.
one approach, right? Like literally one-on-one approach. The other
Hmm.
approach, I think,
Right,
a lot of students are not even aware of the fact that if you are applying to national institutes or like just government institutes, then you don't need any kind of special permission to go visit that institute. You can just visit the institute, go speak with the students, go. You can even speak with the faculties if they are available. And by and large, you can also see the campuses and the courses. Like you can be like even at NID, we used to constantly have schools, like entire schools coming there of young
Okay.
children in Ahmedabad being introduced to, okay, there is an institute in Paldi, and this is what these guys do over there. And
Okay.
that kind of gives you a fair understanding. You can ask questions, you can just look at the things that they are doing and kind of form a better judgment of what you think. And I think a better
Okay.
question for a student who is almost on the verge of making the decision of their career, a better question would be is when you actually visit that institute that you wanted to go to, that when you are on the campus, you can literally ask yourself the question that do you see yourself spending 4.5 years of your life over there? Because if the
Right.
answer is no,
Right.
it is still fine, no, because you've just saved 4.5 years of your life at the expense of just a train ticket. And I think a lot of students don't get this, that you kind of make design your career decisions without doing your bit in figuring out if this is exactly what you think it is, because more often than not, the reality may be slightly different from the mental image we kids tend to form in our heads about our career.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you mean to say that if I want to visit NID to see how the institute is, I can just go to NID and enter the institute from the normal gate and visit and see the place and come?
Yeah, so
I don't need a appointment, or is there a process for
no,
it?
so if for at least for national institutes, I'm looking at government institutes. As far as it's
Right.
not a bank holiday, you can visit whenever. But if you want to, let's say you wanted to speak with a particular faculty of a discipline, right? In that case, it doesn't harm you that, and the good thing is that you go to the websites, all the faculty's email ID and contact details are there. So you can actually call these people beforehand and tell them, okay, I'm a student from this. I want to visit NID or I want to visit IIT, whichever, wherever, whichever government institute.
Right.
I think it would be stupid to think that even private institutes would not allow that. Like, because why wouldn't they? If you are a curious
True.
student, you are more curious about a
Hmm.
particular institute, the least you can do is find out a way of contacting them
Right.
and contacting a particular faculty that you might want to speak with, and just write them a letter, write them an email, seek their appointment, meet them. Even if you don't get that appointment, like I said, there's nobody stopping you from visiting the campus itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So Deepesh, who should opt for a career in design? What do you think?
That's a funny question because like Picasso said, we are all born creative, but the challenge is to remain creative. So in that case, I'd say anyone who's managed to stay creative through their school lives and came out still being they're curious themselves could consider design as a career option. And barring a few fields, like I said before as well, a career in design doesn't have the prerequisites many would be worried about. So whether you are a student of science, commerce, or humanities, this is an option open to all.
Okay. Except I think here now in architecture they require you to be from science.
Yeah, just like I said, so a
Uh,
few design disciplines, if they are if like even if you do civil engineering, for example, there are a few requirements, right? Like because you can't just be
okay.
so there has to be some basic understanding of a few topics which will form the basis of the topic that you will be learning here.
Right.
You yourself said that if you are
Right.
going to do architecture, then there are a few requirements. Much like if you want to do engineering, you have to do like your JEE preparation and AIEEE and all those other things.
Right.
So that remains, but
Okay.
like for a greater portion of design field, those kind of requirements don't apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now once a student has completed his education in design, graduation in design,
hmm
then what are the options one have after completing his graduation, and what are the challenges involved?
So options, I think, not just in design, but like in general, are always endless. We live in the 21st century, so there's at no point should you think that you are defaulted to a binary option of having a startup of your own or taking up a job. And I think that's a very important element that students in today's time really need to look into, because most of us are caught up into that binary situation. Uh,
Hmm.
and because then the other thing is that it kind of stops you from exploring more, right? Uh,
Right.
and So like for example, there was this time when I met this backpacker designer who loved traveling the world, and he would not take a design fee from his clients. So all he would ask his clients is that, you have to give me the flight ticket or the train ticket to come to you, and then you will have to give me
Right.
food, shelter, and beer uh, to suffice the days I will spend designing for you. And that was his
Okay.
way of figuring out how he wanted to get paid for his services, right? So I think it's very important that we explore new avenues in that sense, and like kind of try to break away from binary situations which really don't work in the favor of the student these in at least 21st century. And as far as challenges are concerned, I think nothing comes without its fair share of it. One of the biggest challenges in our country with education in general, not just in design education, is that not only are we producing more graduates than the industry has requirement of, but our focus on scores and percentage over actual learning also means that many with on paper qualifications are not actually equipped with the skills necessary to provide the industry. And then,
Right.
no doubt, we have lakhs of graduates, postgraduates, and even PhD students finding to get level one government jobs when they are clearly overqualified for it, right? So I think somewhere we need to also look at the system in general and not like break it into design and engineering where that remains. I think that's not the main topic we should be focusing on when it comes to career.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So, taking cue from your question, finding out what you love,
Mhm.
is this important? And how can one do it?
I think it's very important, and we need to start developing that culture of doing what we love before we start loving what we do. Our current approach of simply taking the next logical step has our young minds locked in vicious cycle that we clearly need to break. Think about it nowadays. Your parents have to burst their asses simply to provide you the basic of education, and then you burst your asses in your 10th standard and your 12th standard to get the junior college and the university of your choice. Once you get admitted, you think you've gotten your dream job. You should be happily enjoying the process of all that effort that you've put in so far. But instead of enjoying, you forget that you should be focusing on the learning process, and you're again caught up in the race of topping your institute or whatever. And then you might get the scores, but you actually come out learning very little. And then you slog your life at work, and then you get married, and then give birth to little ones just like you, and they are subjected to exactly the same cycle. And I think at somewhere we need to stop. We need to stop, look around, test the waters, and find our passion. And no, Google doesn't have all the answers because you don't even know the right questions right now. So I think use your vacation, step out, explore. If you miss that train, your vacation train, it's still fine. It's not too late. Take a few months, maybe even a year or two off, figure out your life, and in the grand scheme of things, that time you spent figuring out your career option would be time invested and not time wasted.
The students need to do more things on their own to find out what they like, what they are good at, what they enjoy, or what new is out there. That's what whether it's on a vacation or you join some hobby of your interest or you do something in a society wherever. But you have to do something on your own to understand what you enjoy and what you like and what you're
Yeah,
good at.
yeah, because like it's a matter of initiative, and like we live in a time where we have options that we never had before, right? So it's surprising to me that so many students that I teach are kind of always caught up following the loop. Like my dad did this
Hmm.
and his dad did that, and then my friend did this and my elder brother did that, my elder sister did that, and you kind of
Hmm.
completely forget that it like we are living in a time where it no longer matters what somebody before you did, because you have the option of doing what you want to do. And it's baffling to me to see that like young minds in our country are spending no time figuring out what they like. Most of the students I teach, when I
Right.
ask them, why are you here, like my day one question to most of the students is, why are you here, what do you think design is, and what do you think I'm going to offer you? And most of them have a very skewed idea of what they think design is, and they think it's a drawing class. They'll come here, I'll teach them how to draw, and that's the end of it. But that's
Hmm.
literally like obviously drawing is an important element of design, but it's literally that it's one element of design. It is not design. So I
Right.
think some amount of initiative, whether you do it in society, whether you do it through exploring, whether you do it in a vacation, or you just have developed. I think in general there are better ways of informing yourself. Just develop a good habit of reading. Read more diverse stuff instead of reading the same thing again and again and getting caught up into a particular type of mindset. Meet
Right.
new people, and please use your vacations to do literally that, like meet people, go to different cultures, understand how everybody works, and you will be surprised to see that there are so many possibilities of living your life the way. And we are all caught up thinking that we are supposed to live it only this way, which is not really true.
Actually, there the issue also happens because probably this is a generation when we've got so many options which were not there in the previous generation.
Yeah,
So when you listen to your viewpoint, which would come from your parents or your elders, uh, it comes from an era where options were limited,
yeah,
and we are in an era where options are many. But again, the difficulty, even though options are created, like you said, design institutes are only few in numbers. So the options are few in numbers. So the economic viability is a question. Today, if somebody wants to pursue art as a profession, he has to think twice or answer twice to his parents or mentors because art may not necessarily be economically viable as much as any other professional course
yeah,
would be.
yeah,
So I think that is a dilemma that is faced by students
yeah.
also, why they are hesitant to pursue what they want sometimes.
Sure. So it's a dilemma, you say, but like, okay, so hear me out. This is my justification of going about it. If my parents have slogged their asses to ensure I get to do what I want to do, the least I can do is do what I want to do. It is like a disservice to the sacrifices your parents have done to give you the education, or to give you any resources that you needed to do what you wanted to do, and then you go about doing
Mm,
exactly what people before you had done. Right? Then what's the point of that
mm,
sacrifice? Right, so I
mm,
don't think, I think it's like you're talking about practicality, looking at economic sections and all of those things, which is good and practical and
mm,
all. I agree with it, but I don't think it is ideal in today's world, especially when you look at the mental states of our kids. Like I'm looking at people who have clinical depression, and they're like 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and they behave as if they're running the country. And
mm,
that's tremendous pressure, and I agree that it's a lot of times too many options also overwhelming, but it doesn't have to
mm,
be that way. Like you can literally like figure out it takes, I think, the bigger issue is that we have information overload. Like I think one of the few things that I made sure
mm,
that when I teach, that phones are always out of the class. You don't get to keep your phones because it's a constant distraction, right? We have kids
mm,
who have a, focus span of like 3 seconds, 5 seconds. I'm not even kidding. Like before a new thought will enter your mind, and that's constantly because of like our constant use of the phone, social media, and we don't have focused time at all. So I think one of the few things
mm,
is to, like, every once in a while, keep your phone away, keep your technology away. It's good. Technology is good, but we've been abusing it left, right, and center. So keep it away. Sit. I think every day, a simple exercise to do before you sleep is to like just reflect on your day. Like I woke up. What did I do next? What did I do then? And like, if you can rewind just 24 hours of your life before you sleep, then that is good
right,
enough for you to, like, have a record of what you do. Otherwise, you are just living an autopilot life. If your Monday is no different from Tuesday and Tuesday no different from whenever, then if you spend 5 days in a row feeling exactly the same, you have just lived a life of autopilot. And I think at some point
right.
in time, there has to be some amount of reflection in what am I doing? Am I going towards the right direction? Is my current behavior taking me to where I want to be? Like, these are very basic questions that I think nobody is asking today.
Right.
Right? So I think
Right.
it's just a few initiatives
Yeah.
that you have to take on your own end, and none of it comes at any expense or resources. Just about forming a few good habits here and there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So take interest in finding your own passion. That's what I get it from what you're saying. Take initiative, take interest.
Yeah, because like, no, why will anybody else do that for you? If you are on your own, if you won't take any interest in your own life, why should anybody else do it?
Okay, fine. Deepesh, your last word, final word to the students.
Last word would be like a summation of what we said. Explore, teach yourself, because like I said, nobody else will do it for you. Make mistakes, tons of them, because there is no better teacher. Make a ton of mistakes. Cool.
Wonderful. It was a pleasure talking to you, Deepesh.
Same to you,
Thank you
Ganesh.
so much.
Thank you so much.